Friends, welcome to one more episode of Indian Christian. Friends, as I have been talking to you about the Catholic Church, we all know that Catholic Church is the fountainhead of all kinds of unbiblical doctrines. They will have some amount of biblical doctrines, but that will be covered up with all of miry clay and all kinds of dirt, which is which makes it very difficult for us to know which is right or which is wrong. So we definitely need the services of the scriptures to do that. And when we talk about scriptures, our Catholic friends really get into the cringy zone. They don't like scriptures. They might externally tell you that, okay, we love scriptures, and in fact, the Bible was given to us, and it was a book of the Catholic Church, and all those things they will say. But then rarely have they opened up the book to read for themselves, because the book, the Bible, it condemns them square. I mean, there is no escape from that. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16 and 17, we see that all scriptures are God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. There is a part called correcting. When do you correct yourself, or when do we correct ourselves? The purpose of scriptures, if it is correcting, it assumes that there are times when we will deviate from the right path. We will take off from the normal route which is expected from us. That is why there is a correction involved in the scriptures. And how do we get ourselves corrected unless we read the scriptures and make changes in our life and follow the correct path? But unfortunately for our Catholic friends, they have taken a long detour to somewhere in a different angle, totally different angle. Though they keep claiming that, okay, they are the original church, they are the one true church, they are the sequence of the apostles and all those things. God knows how do they make it up. But then, at the end, what happens is that they do not open up the scriptures. Here we read, let me take you to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11. It clearly tells you that these things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of these ages has come. This is in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. It just tells you that how Israel was special for God. But then, unfortunately for them, they thought they were too special to God to let them do whatever they want, and God will not have a problem with that. And what happened? We know that 2000 years back, Israel got rejected. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 23 very clearly that, behold, I leave your house desolate. What does that mean? He rejected Israel. And that is not one single thing, because Israel had a problem right from the beginning. You know how Eli, the priest during the time of Samuel, he might have been a spineless person, but then his sons got into wickedness. And they assumed that because they are of the priesthood class, priesthood clan, God is going to accept them. No, sir. God never accepted them. And God replaced him with Samuel. And what happened with Samuel? Even his sons thought that they were special, but then God rejected them too. See, we serve a God who is unchanging. Our God does not change. His patterns, his rules, his ways remain same. Because he has given us some special position, that does not mean that we can take ourselves for granted and we can deviate in our own ways. Every day we will have to check ourselves and correct ourselves. Now, what I would like to tell you is that the Catholic Church has taken a long detour, and in fact, lot of Catholics have been stunned by certain utterances of the Pope the last week, I guess, when he was in Singapore. By taking some offensive words, no. He said that all religions lead to the same God. What is he telling that? All the way he is nullifying those Catholic claims that the church is the place where the salvation of God is available. Am I not true? I mean, I'm saying their Catholic belief. I don't believe that the Catholic Church has salvation in it. It is another whore, the Babylonian whore, from whom God is telling, "Come out of her, my people, for she is gotten into big abomination." And what are the actions of the Catholics? They are trying to cover up all things by saying that no, Pope indeed did not say this way. He meant this, he said that, and all kinds of excuses are coming because they have to cover up the Pope, whom they say is infallible. And when we point out to the Catholics that is this the actions of the infallible Pope, they say that, oh no, Pope can say a lot of things, but whatever he says only ex cathedra, that is infallible. But friends, he goes around the entire world talking all kinds of nonsense, and all of a sudden, when he comes to be ex cathedra, he becomes holy. Well, if he is non ex cathedra, if he can talk anything, then probably you are in a wrong place. Have you heard of this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? It's schizophrenia. You are ex cathedra, you are unholy, or you can talk anything, and when you come ex cathedra, you become holy. Is that how it works? No, to me it does not work that way. You when you are out of ex cathedra, you have to be more careful because your words carry weight. Being the head of a 1.5 billion people church, I think for sure that your words carry weight. But then let's come to the topic of today, that is purgatory. Now, listen to this clip of Brian Mercier of Catholic Truth, where he tells us that it is very much possible that we are not perfect while we die, because heaven is a place for perfect people, and God would not allow anything imperfect to be in heaven. Therefore, it's possible that we are imperfect. There would be a lot of sins within us which is not gone by the time we die. So we have to get into this particular place called purgatory, which is a waiting period where we will be tested with fire. And then once we are purified out of all our impurities, we will be promoted to heaven. This is a middle place on our way to heaven. He tells that purgatory is a place from where people do not go to hell, but rather it is a middle place on the way to heaven. Listen to this, and then I'll respond back.
I believe that in this waiting place, sins can be purified and forgiven. Again, it's not by us. It's not by our work. It's by the work of Christ. Christ died for us, shed his body and blood for us. His finished work on the cross. He shattered death. He conquered the devil. He killed sin and purified it from our life so he can purify us and perfect us. If not in this life, it'll be perfected and finished after this life in purgatory before the final judgment. Because in Hebrews 9:27, we go to our particular judgment. And it's at that moment that we know whether we are going to heaven or hell, and that is settled and final forever. Now, if we go to heaven, it might be through purgatory, but we're still going to heaven. We don't go to hell from purgatory. You can't. You automatically go to heaven. So that is that path. However, if you're going to hell, you're going to hell and nothing can change that. And then at the final judgment in Matthew 25:31-46, we see that we will be judged in front of everyone and everything will be known. And then heaven and hell forever. Purgatory will cease to exist.
Well, I agree what he's saying has a technical possibility that it is possible that when we die, we might not be completely perfect in our deeds, in our works, in our thoughts. It is possible because we are frail human beings. We are basically sinners by nature. But why did Christ Jesus come to this world? That is a big mystery. When we read in Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5, he says that he bore my infirmities, he took my punishment. If Jesus took my punishment, what is the reason for me to be punished again in a place called purgatory? If he is supposed to do that with me, probably he would rather redeem the people in hell also, because the finiteness of their sin would be able to pull them off. Would it not be? Or would you say that, okay, your sin is infinite, you have people in hell, but then this man, he has some temporal sins, he has some small sins, so he will have to suffer. But then the question automatically comes in, was not Jesus' suffering for my sin capable to avoid me this problem? I don't know how would you want to argue on that. In Philippians chapter 1 verse 6, Paul is saying, being confident in this, that he who began a good work in you will carry on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. So is this work which carries on to the day of completion involve purgatory? I don't know why you would like to think that way, because there is another verse, Hebrews chapter 10 verse 14. It says, because by a single offering he has made perfect for all time those who are being sanctified. For all time means what? He has made me perfect for all time. It means it even would include future. It's not that he made perfect all my sins which was there in the past by cleansing it, but then how would my sins of the future be sanctified? Of course, I should not be going ahead and doing a lot of willful sins, which would be kind of saying that no, I don't believe in your grace. I'm just getting out of the grace. But then it's very much possible we human beings would continue sinning because we are made in that sinful flesh, and it is possible. But then we trust in the completeness of the sacrifice of our Lord Jesus Christ to redeem us, to purify us, to holy us. If we are supposed to enter heaven by getting into the purification process of self, punishment, being punished in the purgatory, that doesn't fit well with the logic where Jesus suffered for my sins. I don't know how would you like to say that, but I don't think this is both syncing up. Did you get me?
And we can see this in 1 Corinthians 3:13 through 15, where it's talking about the judgment, and it's talking about people who receive a reward, heaven, and then people who don't, and then a whole another category of people who will be saved, but only as through fire. Now notice, if you're in hell, you can't be saved. You're there forever. If you're in heaven, you can't, and you don't need to be saved because you're there forever.
Okay. So before we understand this particular passage of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, he said 13 to 15, I would say 10 to 15. Okay, before we understand that, let us recollect back what he said sometimes back. He said that there are people who go directly to heaven. They don't enter the purgatory and go to heaven. The people who enter the purgatory are the ones who has some impurities in life which needs to be purified before they enter heaven. But then this passage is not talking about such people. We can see that in verse 12 it says that if anyone builds the foundation on this foundation, gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw. This is a testing of our work, irrespective of whether we are holy or unholy, perfect or imperfect, having impurities or having no impurities. It is about all. You see the category of works which is being tested. It is gold, silver, costly stones or precious stones. And along with that goes wood, hay, and straw. What Paul is telling is that it is our works which is being tested. We see in verse 13, the quality of each person's work is being tested. It's not the person that is being tested, because the person is already saved by the blood of Christ. If the person's salvation is being tested, then you have a problem with Jesus Christ, who laid down his life, who suffered on that person's behalf and gave him salvation. And again, his salvation is being tested, means his Savior is being tested. That is a big problem for Christianity. I would not even want to think on those lines. But then it says that if your work is of gold, silver, precious stones, it will not be burned up. Rather, it would be shown more brightly. Would you want to tell that the saints who are good saints according to the Catholic Church, would their works not be tested? No, this verse clearly tells that even if it is Saint Peter and even if it is people like me, our works will be tested, irrespective of who we are. So, if this is purgatory, then Saint Peter gets into purgatory. Saint Paul, Saint Mary, all gets through the purgatory because even though their works are like gold, silver, precious stones, it has to be tested with fire. See, you guys are taking the context, Mr. Brian, you're taking the context totally out of this thing and putting it onto a, a dummy called purgatory and trying to force the doctrine of purgatory using these scriptures. And what is the heading of your video? It says that the Bible proves purgatory. Well, Bible does not prove purgatory. This is about testing of your works, but not testing of your impurities where you enter through the whatever, the purgatory, the fire of purgatory. That's not how it is. You guys are totally taking things out of context, making a new dummy. Of course, when you made Saint Mary as some queen of heaven and whatnot, we should expect these things also from you. Now let me proceed with the next part of the video.
There's another place where you're going to be saved, but only as through fire, a purification process. We can also see this in 2 Maccabees 12:43 through 46, where it said a man prayed and made tithing offerings for people who had passed away already so they could be loosed for their sins. Listen to what it says. It says, in doing this, he acted very honorably, taking into account the resurrection. For if he were not expecting that those who had fallen would rise again, it would have been superfluous and foolish to pray for the dead. But if he was looking to the splendid reward that is laid up for those who have fallen asleep in godliness, it was a holy and pious thought, and he therefore made atonement for their sins.
Now we have this particular verses from Maccabees to justify the praying of the dead in the purgatory. Well, I don't see that part of the scriptures where they have entered into purgatory, but the general assumption by the Catholics is that this particular set of people, they entered purgatory, and now Judas Maccabees is praying for the dead, for those dead. And of course, I don't have a Catholic Bible, so I had to spend some money to get this Catholic Bible. So I thought it's good. Let me read it. Who are these people who got dead in the battle? It says this. Then, under the tunic of each one of the dead, they found sacred tokens of the idols of Jamnia. So these people, they had sacred idols of Jamnia. They were accused of idol worship. That means externally they are fighting for the Lord or fighting for Israel. But then internally, who were they? They were core idol worshippers. And even the verse it says that, and it became clear to all that this was the reason these men had fallen. Man, if this man had fallen because of their own idol worship, what does it tell you? It just tells you that you cannot be doubled people. Internally, you are a totally different person. Externally, your hypocrisy makes you fight the battle of the Lord. Isn't that most of our Catholics doing? Internally, they are devoted to a lot of idols, including Mary. They do externally a lot of idol worshippers, but then they say, oh, no, it's not idol worship, but this is just veneration, hyperdulia. This is not latria, this is hyperdulia. Man, to anybody who looks into it, it becomes really clear that you guys are idol worshippers. But then what is happening is that Maccabees is praying for these idol worshippers and doing offering sin offering for their transgressions, assuming that even though they committed this grave sin, they will be reaching heaven. But that is not how the Past biblical scriptures also tell you. See, some people in the Bible can be wrong. For example, when you read the book of Job, his friends talk a lot of sensible things. You think this is all good things. Why should they be wrong? But at the end, what is God telling? God is telling that what Job told is right, what his friends told is wrong. And when you go back and just search back what the friends told, to a human, commonsensical mind, they told right. Why should they be wrong? But then God judges. He told that Job said right and his friends said wrong. And there is one example for all of us to know what happened when the battle, in the battle, somebody dies. So let me quote you from the book of Joshua, where they had won the battle against Jericho. You know, Jericho's battle was the topmost battle where they ensured that the walls of Jericho crumbled, and they did not really fight for it, but they just followed the law of the Lord. What the commander or Joshua commanded, they did exactly like that. They won. And God said to each Israelites not to take any of those goods of Jericho because those are cursed. And there was a man called Achan. He took that, hid it with him. Probably his family also knew, I don't know. And then they lost the battle of Ai. And at that point in time, Joshua is praying to God, God, how did this happen? We defeated this big Jericho and this small Ai we lost. At that point in time, Joshua is revealed that this person called Achan, he disobeyed God by taking those cursed things and kept in his possession, even though they were costly. So the judgment of God is not based on your association with Israel or the Catholic Church or with Jesus. Even see, Judas, he was associated with Jesus, but he was judged severely. It's not our association, it is how we react to God. Internally, are we pure? That is the whole question. And you guys are saying that because Judas Maccabees prayed for these fallen ones, they would be entering to heaven from the purgatory. There is no reference to purgatory here. All that we see is that they are being prayed to, prayed for, or sacrifice is done on their behalf. Sin offering is done on their behalf. And nowhere it is telling that that was accepted by God. I don't know if this is the kind of excuses you want to justify purgatory. God bless you. But the Bible doesn't agree to that because Achan was severely punished. Unless you want to tell that, okay, Achan would be in heaven. He entered purgatory and later on, maybe Joshua prayed in silent prayer and he went to enter to heaven. These kind of stories is being made by the Catholic Church and fooling people in the name of God. I think it's high time people open their eyes and realize that they are being fooled by this huge entity called the Catholic Church. It's just a pack of lies. You know, there was this propaganda chief of Hitler, Mr. Goebbels. He said that if you continue to keep lying time and again, people will continue to believe that it is true. And that is exactly what Catholic Church has done. They have followed Goebbels' technology or theology, whatever it is. And they are victorious in that matter that they have been successful in fooling 1.5 billion people in the name of Christ. Now, friends, this is the end of this video. And if you have liked the video, please do subscribe it and do that thumbs up like button. And now may the good Lord bless you and keep you till we meet again. Bye for now.